Everyone's calling UFC 319 a toss-up. Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev for the middleweight title, and the so-called experts keep saying it's 50-50. They're talking about how close this will be, how either man could walk away champion. But here's the thing nobody wants to admit. This fight isn't going to be close at all. One of these fighters is about to get absolutely demolished, and it's not who you think.
The narrative floating around is simple. If DDP survives the first round, he wins the fight. Chimaev will gas out, Du Plessis will take over, and we'll see another comeback victory for the South African champion. But this entire story is built on lies, and I'm about to expose exactly why everything you've heard about this fight is completely wrong.
Let's start with the elephant in the room, the grappling. Everyone knows this fight hits the mat early, probably within the first minute. Chimaev shoots on everyone from the opening bell, and DDP knows it's coming. The question isn't if they'll grapple, it's whether Du Plessis can survive when they do.
Here's where the analysis gets interesting. People keep saying DDP will survive on the ground because he's tough, because he's durable, because he's bigger and stronger. But they're completely ignoring the technical side of ground fighting. When it comes to actual grappling skill, defending submissions, getting back to your feet, controlling position, DDP hasn't shown anything special.
Look at their mutual opponent, Robert Whittaker. When DDP fought him, Whittaker took him down with ease. A simple double leg straight to his back. Now imagine what happens when someone with Chimaev's level of grappling does the same thing. We're not talking about the same league here. Whittaker is a decent wrestler, but Chimaev just ragdolled him and submitted him in the first round.
The scary part? We've never seen Du Plessis face a grappling specialist at this level. Every opponent he's beaten had clear weaknesses on the ground. Against a true submission artist like Chimaev, those technical gaps become massive problems. People are betting on DDP's toughness to carry him through, but toughness doesn't defend rear-naked chokes.
This brings us to the biggest misconception about this entire fight, the idea that DDP has some massive physical advantage. For his entire UFC career, Dricus has been the bigger, stronger fighter. Against Sean Strickland, against Israel Adesanya, even against Whittaker, he's always had that edge. But not this time. Chimaev might be one of the most physically imposing fighters at middleweight. The frame, the strength, the explosiveness, he matches or exceeds everything DDP brings to the table. We've seen Khamzat knock people out with single punches at 185. We've watched him completely dominate fighters who gave other top contenders serious problems.
Think about it this way. Strickland never ragdolled Whittaker the way Chimaev did. Adesanya never imposed his will physically like that. For the first time in his championship run, Du Plessis is going to be the smaller, weaker fighter. That changes everything about how this fight plays out.
The only physical advantage DDP might have is cardio, and even that's questionable. His conditioning isn't some otherworldly attribute. It's just that he pushes harder than his opponents. When you're getting controlled on the ground for 15 minutes, that pushing power doesn't matter. Chimaev will be the fresh one going into later rounds if this fight stays on the mat. Here's where the conventional wisdom really falls apart. The entire game plan for DDP relies on surviving early and taking over late when Chimaev supposedly fades. But this strategy has a fatal flaw. It assumes the fight will be competitive enough for cardio to matter.
Du Plessis' cardio advantage comes from his ability to maintain pace and pressure. Against Adesanya, he wore him down with constant forward movement. Against Strickland, he simply threw more strikes. But what happens when you're stuck on your back for 2 straight rounds? That cardio edge disappears completely.
Chimaev's conditioning issues come from explosive, high-output exchanges. When he's wrestling and controlling position, he's not burning through gas tanks the same way. If anything, having DDP carry his weight for extended periods might actually favor the Chechen fighter in later rounds. The Gilbert Burns fight that everyone points to as proof of Chimaev's cardio problems, he was trading shots with a dangerous striker,
taking damage while dishing it out. That's completely different from methodically controlling someone on the ground. People are applying the wrong template to predict this fight's outcome.
Even if we assume DDP can somehow defend takedowns and keep this standing, and that's a massive assumption, the striking advantage isn't as clear-cut as people think. Chimaev's stand-up game gets seriously underrated because everyone focuses on his grappling. But he's knocked out multiple opponents with single shots, and his power is very real at middleweight.
In the early rounds, when both fighters are fresh, Chimaev presents knockout danger from anywhere. His striking might not be as polished as DDP's, but it doesn't need to be. One clean shot changes everything. And Khamzat has the power to end fights on the feet just as easily as on the ground.
Later in the fight, if both men are tired from grappling exchanges, the technical striking advantage becomes even smaller. At that point, it becomes about who can impose their will, and Chimaev has shown a much better ability to take what he wants in fights. DDP's unorthodox style works great against technical strikers, but it leaves him off balance and vulnerable to takedowns from explosive wrestlers.
The path to victory for Du Plessis requires almost everything to go right. He needs to defend takedowns consistently, avoid getting hurt early, and then slowly wear down someone who's probably stronger and more explosive than him. That's not a recipe for success. It's hoping for a miracle.
Let's talk about what Chimaev did to Robert Whittaker, because this fight tells us everything we need to know about UFC 319. Whittaker wasn't some washed-up veteran. He was coming off quality wins and looked sharp leading up to that fight. Many people expected a competitive bout, maybe even picked Bobby Knuckles to win.
Instead, Chimaev made it look easy. He took Whittaker down almost immediately, advanced position without much resistance, and submitted him with a face crank that nearly broke his jaw. The technical dominance was complete, and it happened faster than anyone anticipated.
Now, consider that Du Plessis struggled more with Whittaker's grappling than expected. He got taken down, had trouble getting back up, and looked uncomfortable whenever the fight hit the mat. If that version of Whittaker gave DDP problems, what does the Chimaev who destroyed Whittaker do to him?
The submission itself is telling too. Whittaker's not known for tapping early or giving up easily. He's one of the toughest fighters in the division, with excellent defensive grappling skills. For Chimaev to finish him that quickly suggests a level of grappling dominance that DDP simply hasn't faced before.
Even fighters who've competed at the highest level are getting this wrong. Robert Whittaker himself backs DDP to win, which seems crazy considering what happened to him. Kamaru Usman talks about Chimaev's wrestling being hell for anybody, but then hedges on who wins the actual fight.
The problem is that everyone's overthinking this. They're looking for technical reasons why it might be competitive, analyzing stylistic matchups and game plan adjustments. But sometimes fights are simpler than that. Sometimes one fighter is just better than the other, and all the analysis in the world won't change that reality.
Tito Ortiz called it a rude awakening for DDP, and he might be the only one being honest about what's going to happen. This isn't about disrespecting Du Plessis or his championship reign. He's fought hard to get where he is and deserves credit for his accomplishments. But there are levels to this game, and Chimaev represents a step up that might be too big.
The betting odds reflect this confusion perfectly. Books have this fight much closer than it should be, which suggests even the professionals don't fully grasp the skill gap here. When you have a dominant grappler facing someone with questionable takedown defense, the math becomes pretty simple. Here's what's really going to happen at UFC 319. Chimaev shoots within the first minute, gets the takedown without too much trouble, and immediately starts working for a finish. DDP will survive longer than Whittaker did. His size and durability will help him there, but the outcome won't be in doubt. The most likely scenario is a first-round TKO by ground and pound. Not a clean knockout, but referee stoppage due to accumulated damage.
Chimaev will get to dominant position, DDP won't be able to defend effectively, and the fight gets stopped when it becomes clear he can't intelligently defend himself. There's an outside chance it goes to the second round if Du Plessis shows exceptional survival skills. But even then, the same dynamic plays out. Another takedown, more control time, and eventually the dam breaks. Chimaev has multiple ways to win this fight, while DDP needs almost everything to go perfectly just to be competitive.
The submission threat is real too, though probably not the most likely outcome. DDP's neck and defensive awareness might be better than Whittaker's, making the rear naked choke more difficult. But Chimaev has other weapons: arm triangles, kimuras, face cranks. Against someone without elite defensive grappling, he'll find something that works. This isn't going to be a back-and-forth war. It's not going to be a showcase for both fighters' skills. UFC 319's main event is going to be a dominant performance that leaves people wondering why they ever thought it would be competitive in the first place. And when it's over, the only surprise will be that more people didn't see it coming.